My dad disowned me for marrying beneath our class. I was raised in a world of gala dinners, private tennis lessons, and silent expectations. My father, Gerald, made his fortune in real estate and lived like reputation was oxygen. Everything had to look perfect. I understood early on that success was measured in last names and degrees, and that love only mattered if it came with a resume. I spent most of my life following that script. I graduated top of my class from an Ivy, became a cardiothoracic surgeon, and kept my shoes polished enough for a boardroom. Then I met Michael. There was a fire in my apartment building while I was still a medical resident. I remember the heat clinging to the walls and the smoke choking the stairwell. I was barefoot in scrubs, trying to help an elderly neighbor, when Michael appeared through the haze. He carried 2 people out that night, along with their dog, and barely stopped to breathe. Later, after the flames were out, he offered me his jacket and a bottle of water. He wasn't trying to impress anyone, he just cared. We kept bumping into each other after that. Coffee turned into dinner, and dinner turned into something that felt like a lifeline. He worked long shifts as a firefighter and had grease under his nails most days, but he listened. He asked about my cases, remembered the names of my patients, and never once looked uncomfortable when I talked about surgeries or the stress of rounds. His world was different, but it never felt smaller. It felt grounded. When I brought him to meet my parents, the atmosphere in the house changed. My mother was polite but quiet. My father looked him over once and made his opinion known without saying much. That night, after Michael left, Gerald told me I was playing with my future. When I told him we were engaged, he gave me a choice. I could have our family name, the inheritance, the access and connections, or I could have Michael. I chose Michael. We got married in a little chapel outside the city. No orchestra, no catered hors d'oeuvres, just friends, Dr. Simmons from the hospital as my witness, and the man I loved standing at the end of the aisle. The early years were hard. I finished med school without a dime from my family. Michael picked up back-to-back shifts and we lived in a tiny apartment where we could hear the neighbors through the vents. But we were happy. We were building something real. Our daughter Tracy was born 3 years later. She had Michael's eyes and this fierce little laugh that reminded me of my grandmother. We sent photos to my parents every holiday. Christmas cards, birthday invitations, baby updates. Not once did they respond. Then one evening, after a 12-hour surgery, I pulled into the driveway and saw someone sitting on the porch. He stood up slowly, thinner than I remembered, hair graying at the temples. It took me a second to recognize him. It was my father. I didn't say a word, just unlocked the front door and waited. We sat in the living room while the clock ticked behind us. Then he spoke. His voice was lower than I remembered, tired. He told me he was sick, late-stage cancer, a few months left, maybe less. Then he told me something I hadn't expected. He said he hadn't been born into wealth. He had grown up poor, in a tiny house with too many siblings and not enough food. He had built everything from the ground up and buried his past so deeply that even his own daughter didn't know it. When I married Michael, someone who reminded him of everything he had tried to escape, it terrified him. He said he couldn't admit that then. So instead, he pushed me away. He handed me a small box. Inside were articles clipped from newspapers, medical journals, awards, photos of Tracy, ones I had mailed. My mother had saved them. Everyone. I didn't cry. Not then. I didn't know if I felt anger or sadness or just exhaustion. I called Michael. He came into the room and sat beside me. My father looked at him and apologized. It wasn't dramatic, just a quiet, tired kind of apology that came from someone who didn't have much time left. Eventually, I let him meet Tracy. She ran up to him with that fearless curiosity only kids have. He watched her like he was memorizing her face. In that moment, something softened in me. He died 3 months later. At his funeral, I didn't speak about his money or his career. I talked about fear, about change, about the pieces of truth we bury and the cost of burying them. Later in his study, I found a journal he had kept. Inside was a note about a college fund he had started for Tracy. It didn't fix everything, but it mattered.